Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Hiya Toys King Ghidorah. I know it's one that a lot of you have been very interested in. I've had lots of requests, and luckily Hiya sends me review samples since I don't collect monster art. I don't collect Monsterverse or the scale, but they like my reviews and you guys like my reviews, so here we go. We have a review for one of the coolest three-headed dragons that ever existed. Read into, by the way, if you're, just as a side note, if you're not super into Godzilla lore, the fiction, read into it a little bit. The things that happen with Ghidorah specifically are just fascinating pieces of science fiction. Okay, alright, so you know what, we don't have a stand or anything, so we're just gonna dive right into it. Let's do a quick question of the day. This question is gonna be somewhat practical and also just personal. The old Ghidorah, not Monsterverse, but the classic Ghidorah, very gold. Like, made of gold. Very, very gold. Monsterverse, they said he had gold on him, like, partly gold, whatever, but he wasn't super gold. The, I'm gonna keep saying the wrong words. The Monster Arts figure was very gold. This guy, not metallic at all. But, golden colored. How do you feel about that? I'm thinking he should have a dry brushing of a metallic finish. Does that sound correct to you guys? I think that's right. Should be metallic gold, right? Am I wrong? I don't know. So that's part of this. That's the thing for this review. Now, let's go ahead and get into the aesthetic, but first we have to do a height measurement. To the top of the head, like this, it's about 10 inches, roughly, to the main head. That's about 20... let's just call it 25 centimeters, depending on how you have it curved. To the wingtip, we're pushing about 31 centimeters, if his wings are just straight up like this, and that's gonna be about 12 and a half inches. Okay, so here he is up against Darwin. He's got some size to him, and here he is up against Hiya's Godzilla. Is that scaling accurate? I think it's probably about right. Does that look right to you guys? I think that's about right. Okay, so that's enough of that. Let's get into the aesthetic. I love the sculpt on this thing. It really, really butters my biscuits. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show this to you because he's very large and awkward. But let's do this. Let's look at the faces first. I think they did a really good job with the faces. I'm a little bit concerned about the underbite. They have a little bit of an underbite going on. Can we focus on the one in the center, please? Thank you. A little bit of an underbite going on, especially noticeable when you close the jaw. I don't remember that being the case. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have to say the sculpt on these guys, for being as tiny as they are, which is like, the head's probably about an inch long, it is done exceptionally well. You can see they have articulated jaws and moving tongues, so that's cool. But this is some of their best paintwork. The eyes are nice and clear, the mouth is very well done. Sculpt-wise and paint-wise, these things are very nice. Maybe without considering the fact that it has an underbite if it shouldn't. But the thing that I really like the most is the scale texture. All the way down the neck you can see it. It's nice, but it gets even more obvious as you get to the torso. Like that right there, his abdomen area, that looks like frickin' iguana skin. Like really, it looks like it's actually made out of lizard parts. They did a really good job sculpting this guy. Little spikies on his leg with more texture. It's very nicely done. His feet have a lot of detail. And then into the wings, we have a transitional period right here. Transitional? I guess that's the right word. Doesn't look great. I have to say it's not really the right color. It's kind of in the way. We'll get into that when we talk about the articulation. But we have the scaling going up through the arms and the finger thingies. But then even the wings have a really nice texture and veins going on. Nice wrinkles and things. It looks good. This thing is sculpted really, really well. I like it a whole bunch. Let me turn it around so you can see that. You see more of that lizard skin on the back. You see how these don't really match, but that texture on there is nuts. I'm not a lizardy type person. I don't own lizards, but I mean, they're cool enough creatures. But that looks exactly like what my brain tells me a lizard looks and feels like. I have been around them before, and I think that's awesome. And then the tails, they look good too for being segmented. They look really good. And then the paint, like I said, he's not golden, but it is a pretty good paint job. I think the worst part about it, let me fix the camera, I know, is the shading on the elbows, if you want to call them that, the finger bends. Those dark spots don't look great, but otherwise this thing looks really damn good. I do think it should have a metallic finish, but otherwise it looks awesome. So aesthetically, if you're not going to count the metallic finish, I would go 9. But if you're not considering the metallic finish, or if you are considering the metallic finish as a problem but not a deal breaker, I would say 8. And if it's a deal breaker, then it doesn't need a score because you don't want it because it's not metallic gold. But what's here does look freaking cool. You just have to decide if you're okay with it being gold or not, or with it not being gold, if it should be. Okay, now as far as accessories go, you just get some display stands, which as you can see, he's standing on his own. By the way, I'm not zoomed in too far, he's too big. I can't really do anything about it other than push him back and hope he doesn't fall off the table. You get these display stands, which are for his wings, one for either wing, and then one for his tum-tum. I don't know how to practically use these other than to wedge the wing things underneath his wings. They're little tuning fork type things. His tum-tum, I don't know why I'm saying that. There's something wrong with me. Lack of sleep is what's happening. I'm getting so little sleep these days between working on this stuff and then doing the house remodel and the 20-month-old kid. I am running on dreams at this point, but not sleep dreams because I'm not sleeping. Anyway, this piece fits against his body, but it's like you're gonna have to do a lot of finagling to get it in there in a useful way. So whatever. I don't like these personally, and you don't really need them. As you can see, you can't really pose this guy anyway, and that's gonna lead us into the articulation section. Accessories 0. I guess like a blast effect. Does he shoot blasts like Godzilla? He shoots fire, doesn't he? Out of his mouth? Like dragon fire? I don't know. I could be wrong. Anyway, so no accessories, but articulation. You're not gonna really want to pose this guy too much in this form because it won't look right and he'll fall over. So you'll have to use the display stands if you want to do that, but you can't really pose him anyway. So I would say get this just as a preface to the articulation segment. Just get this if you like it in a neutral pose. You want it to be an action figure, but don't really plan on doing much with it other than adjusting the heads. That would be my recommendation. However, there is one kind of cool feature which I'll talk about in just a moment. Let's just run the regular articulation as best we can. So the heads, obviously, lots of segmentation going on. They don't have a ton of range. Like, you can't use them as much as you would like to be able to use them, probably. They're still fairly static. You can adjust them, for sure, but they're definitely meant for specific poses. Mostly being this neutral pose where they're S-shaped and looking forward. So yeah, you can adjust them, but not a ton. And that stops right here, so like you're not doing a whole lot with the necks, alright? The shoulders, I think this is just a big ball peg in here, I'm not positive. And I think this is a ball hinge. As you can see, it works okay. Gosh, it's so big and awkward. That's what she said. You can like do a wing flap. This is a separate piece, so you have to bring that with it. So that's okay. You can do wing flaps and things like that. They did a pretty good job. I'll show you why this is separate in a minute. Not ideal, I know, in like a neutral pose, but they did a pretty good job keeping everything looking all right. You're still not going to be doing a ton of posing, but you can move this around a little bit. Does that just rotate? It's like it has some wiggle. It's weird. It's not the most functional thing, and this ball hinge in here, assuming it is a ball hinge, I think it is. It looks like it. It could just be a ball. You're not getting a ton of range out of it is my point, but it is there. Same thing with this one here. But here's the unique thing. Well, you know what? Let's get to that last. I'll do that last because it's a unique thing. The hips. Now, the hips are somewhat of a conundrum because they have virtually 0 range. We'll do it on this side. Almost none. I'll get to the torso in a second. I want to talk about the hips. There's virtually 0 range. Like, yeah, you can force it to like rotate, and we'll use that for a certain pose, but otherwise, there's not much going on there. So it's a conundrum because this kind of rotation right here is helpful for one pose, and I'll show you that in a minute. But every other option, you would be better off with fixed legs so that he can stand on his own much more easily. So it's really going to depend on what you want to do with him, if you like that or not. The knees are a swivel hinge. They can go about that far forward, about that far back. It's enough. The ratchet is fine. The swivel is a little bit loose. The ankles, if you want to call them that, which they actually are, not as tight as I would like, but they're okay. Decent range, and then they do rotate as well. And then there's actually a ball peg in here. I thought it was just a seam for manufacturing, but there's a little ball peg in here for adjustments for his feet to help him stand, so that's good. The tails, just what you would expect, just like the necks. They do have a lot of segments, but they don't have actually a ton of range. So, I mean, if you force it, it'll go, but it doesn't hold a pose that well. So yeah, it's not meant for like crazy dynamic, heavy posing. It can articulate, it is an action figure, but don't expect too much. Do be aware, these tails are not connected to him in the package. They 100% require being heated up to get on, and even then it's a son of a gun. It's not easy to get his tails connected. The first one's not so bad, but the second one, because you have nowhere to put your hand, very difficult. So definitely warm that up first. All right, for the torso, it does have a big ball peg in there. The range is not the best, but it's not bad. Well, I guess it is kind of bad. I was thinking it was a little bit better, but it has very little range, and mine's a little floppy, honestly. It is a ball, so it leans in different directions, but just not very well. Rotation's not great, so yeah, it kind of blows. So, which isn't surprising, and it's not necessarily a problem. I personally wouldn't mind if I was into buying things like this. I wouldn't be buying them for the articulation. I'd be buying them to have it basically just in a cool pose, but to be technically an action figure so I can adjust it a little bit and consider myself the one who posed it rather than whoever sculpted the statue if that was what I was going to buy instead. So I'm okay with that personally. You guys can decide for yourselves. Articulation blows though. I'm going to say 2 out of 10, like it's almost worthless. There's some, and it's fine for that, for this character, but it's not good. All right, but there is one other feature that I wanted to talk about, and it's not, I mean, it goes with these hips that I mentioned. His wings separate, and you probably noticed he has articulation up here, and we have this separate piece down here. And that is so that you can, I'm going to bring the box up to show you what I'm going to try to do in case I'm not able to achieve it due to incompetence. All right, here we go. Trying to achieve that right there, where he's folded his wings up and he's like walking on his wrists, as a dragon might do. He's not really a dragon. A dragon has arms and wings, right? Is he a wyvern with 3 heads? I don't know the rules for dragons anymore. I'm not as cool as I used to be. All right, so these work surprisingly well. Like you can barely tell, other than having the articulation here, you can barely tell they're separate pieces. Hiya nailed that. So they do pop apart and together. Obviously, in order to keep them together, they have to snap together. They do separate very nicely. Now, they have... Oh. How am I gonna do that? That seems tricky. They just... Let's see what we get out of here. I can't tell what kind of joints they are, really. Are they ball hinges? You're probably going to lose focus as I'm trying to figure this out. But I'm going to try to do it to see if we can actually make it happen. Yeah, they are ball hinges. Okay. They're slightly weird because they're sculpted and it's a little hard to see what's going on. But they are ball hinges. So... we should be able to... And then this one you can just kind of... How did they do the back one? Doesn't really show. I think the back one probably got folded like this. Anyway, so the hips I was talking about earlier, you can bring them up a little bit farther, and then you can rotate the knee around. Okay, you rotate the knee around and that gets him in his more forward positioning. Like that. It's a little awkward because like I said, his articulation's not great. And he's big and finicky. Alright, so his feet are in the right position, really. Can I get his arms in the right position? If I do that... What did they do? They just rotated it forward. Okay, let's try that. We're gonna bring this back to here. And then rotate this whole thing forward. And down. It's, I'm having a little bit of difficulty. I'm not gonna say you can't do it, but I don't want to sit here all night trying to do it for a very specific pose that I don't think anybody's gonna want to do anyway. I can't figure out how they actually did that. This looks like... It looks like they have theirs bent more than I have mine on these ball hinges, but I can't get them to go any farther because they're hitting. See? So I'm not sure. And they have theirs probably rotated more like this. Like, that's close. I don't think he'd be able to stand on his own unless you were able to bring these way farther forward. I guess you can. And really, really play with it to get it just right. You could stick this thing under his tum-tum. I'm such a doofus. I apologize. I haven't done this piece before, so I don't know exactly where it goes. But let's just say it goes... I'm not going to say it again. Okay, whatever. You get the idea. You could put that down there, and then you would have him leaning forward. But I'm still not getting this anywhere near touching the surface as you would want it to be. So, it's a good idea, and I guess you could probably play with it enough to make it work. But as of right now, I'm going to have to say it only marginally kind of does that pose that they're showing. And otherwise, it's mostly an advertising shot. But, I mean, it probably does it. I don't know, Hiya hasn't been that way, been like gimmicky in their photos and stuff, but who knows? I don't know. If you have this thing, you can let me know at some point. But as of right now, I'm not able to get it all the way there. So, alright. Final verdict on this thing. It's a cool piece. I don't know about the metallic gold not being there. The articulation is really not great, obviously. But it is a big three-headed winged dragon with articulation, so it's like understandable, I think. Sculpt looks great, so I'm a little bit torn on this thing. I'm gonna just go 7 out of 10. If you don't care about posing it, it's great. It's perfectly good, no problem at all, other than the metallic gold aspect. If you really wanted to get it into that like walking with its wings touching the ground pose, then you might have to think twice, or just be ready to accept that it doesn't do it the way you want it to. Or that it might not, because I had trouble. And I'm using the photo as reference, and I'm trying, and I just couldn't get it. So yeah, I mean, I would go for the sculpt and paint. It looks awesome, but it's not gold. So again, it's like a toss-up. I don't know, I'm torn on this one. Let's just leave it at the 7, and let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But that's it for me, so thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos every day but Wednesday, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.